This video is going to be put together to try to give an overview of the effects of climate change on plant communities. With an increase of global temperatures, that we're seeing alterations of flowering times. We're also seeing changes of hydrological cycles, all that are going to be adding stress to plant communities. There are also going to be major shifts in plant distributions, as we can see here in the current timeline where we have most of our tree species densely populated here in the eastern parts of America, that there are going to be shifts where this goes up into more northern latitudes due to the increased climate and plants needing to once again find dispersal mechanisms that will make them keep up with this change of the temperature. One of the many challenges that plants are going to face is to try to keep up with the change in climate, that they will need to disperse themselves into new locations that will be suitable to their growth habitats. Now, for plants, they just can't get up and walk, of course, from one destination to the other, but it's a slow process for the plants. What they have to do is disperse themselves by seeds or by spores into new locations. And the fear is that if they can't keep up with the pace that climate change is having, that a lot of these species are going to be finding extinction. We're also predicting shifts of plant hardiness zones. Here in the New York area of Orange County, that we are currently at a zone 5 to 6. But now, as climate change are predicted to shift in the next 30 years, we're going to be going into zones 7 in this northeastern region that plant communities will not be able to adapt very well to. Another major aspect to climate change is how plants will adapt depending upon their photosynthesis requirements. Here we see soybeans, which are a C3 plant. And here we compare that to Zea mays, which is a type of plant. The photosynthetic route is known as a C4 pathway. In C3 photosynthesis, the light-dependent reactions that split water and generate oxygen as a byproduct occur in the same mesophyll cells that the carbon fixation or the light-independent reactions occur, where the carbon dioxide comes in and is fixed with rubisco into eventually going through the Calvin-Benson cycle to form organic molecules such as sugars in the plants through photosynthesis. However, because the oxygen production from the light-dependent reactions is being produced within the same cells that the light-independent reactions are occurring, where the carbon dioxide gets fixed into sugars, that there's a problem known as photorespiration, where instead of carbon dioxide fitting in to produce the sugar, oxygen fits into this rubisco and it does not generate energy for the plant. However, C4 photosynthesis has evolved to reduce photorespiration in hot environments by spatially separating the light-dependent and the light-independent reactions. Here in a regular mesophyll cell, there'll be the light-dependent reactions where oxygen is actually being generated, but it's not going to be in the same location where the Calvin-Benson cycle occurs, where the light-independent reaction takes place to actually fix in this carbon dioxide. So what the C4 plant does is that it takes this PEP carboxylase enzyme and attaches the carbon dioxide in those mesophyll cells and then transfers that into oxaloacetate, hence the name C4, as the 4 carbons then get converted into malate, and then this transfers into the bundle sheath cell, releasing the CO2, to where this then can be fixed with rubisco into forming the sugars and keeping that separate from the photorespiration that would have been taking place in those mesophyll cells. Plants do have natural adaptations that will help reduce water loss in times of plant stress through heat and lack of water. Generally, when the plant is photosynthesizing, through the day the stomates are wide open due to these guard cells swelling with water, which is known as producing this turgor pressure. But due to this stress, that what will happen is that the solutes that were found inside of these guard cells will then start to be released outside into neighboring cells, which will then decrease the water pressure that's found locally in these guard cells, and hence the cells will close. But when you have a closed stomate during the day, that still photosynthesis is taking place within the mesophyll cells, which will then inevitably start to generate more oxygen inside the plant that remains trapped and increases photorespiration rates. Due to climate change, we're also going to be seeing seasonal variations throughout the growing year. Now, this plant here is one of my favorite plants of the Northeast. This one is a type of orchid known as Cypripedium acale. This is one of the most majestic spring flowering plants that I think that we have in this area. But there is a danger with climate change, that if, for instance, temperatures are warming, and even this 2017 spring season, I saw spring flowering plants blooming in the middle of winter. And with this, there runs a high possibility of risk to get an asynchronous timing between flowering plants and then that of the pollinators that are going to be coming out, that are required to pass the gametes from the one flower to the other flower to reach that female to make seed and the new generation. And if this is offset, that we're looking at whole species being extinct, just not being able to reproduce and continue the next generation. Now, there are some things that we as humans can do to help in this process. If it is that we can put plants and start growing them in new areas along their northern distribution regions naturally, that we can sometimes shift plant populations to actually be at that location where they'll be able to thrive and strive in the new environment. We as humans should do what we can now, today, to try to prevent the major consequences that climate change may bring us.